In this video, we are talking about the movie John Wick released in 2014. We will discuss the movie story, summarize the plot, and we will also talk about the cast and characters of the movie as well as the box office performance of the movie. John Wick crashes an SUV into a wall. He staggers on out of the vehicle, bloody and wounded. He puts pressure on a stab wound in his gut. As he crawls to the side, he takes out his phone and watches a video of his wife Helen on the beach. John slumps over and shuts his eyes. Mere days ago, John woke up on a cloudy day. He has flashbacks to him being with Helen, up until recently when he collapsed in his arms. She had an illness that eventually claimed her life. It is the day of her funeral. After the service, John's old friend Marcus approaches him to offer his condolences. That night, a delivery arrives for John. It's a small vehicle. John finds a note from Helen. She wrote to him that she has made peace with her death and now she wants John to find his. John weeps. He takes the dog out and looks at his collar, which has a flower on it, leading John to figure out Helen named the dog Daisy. Daisy follows John on his day as he takes his Mustang out. He stops to get gas at the same time as three Russian mobsters, including Losov Tresov, son of mob boss Vico Tresov. Losov comes up to John's car and compliments it, and then asks how much he wants for it. John says it's not for sale. Losov then goes over to Daisy, but John scares him away. One of Losov's buddies peeks his head into the car and wishes John a good day. As John is getting into bed, Daisy needs to use the bathroom. When they get downstairs, there are two men in shadows standing before John, while a third takes a bat and whacks John in the head. He starts beating on John while Daisy whines. One of the men goes over to the dog and breaks her neck. The man pulls off his mask to reveal Joseph, who knocks John out. John later wakes up and goes over to Daisy, stroking her head. Losov takes John's car to a shop run by Aurelio. Aurelio immediately recognizes the car and demands to know where Losov got it. Losov brags about who he stole the car from and that he killed this person's dog. Aurelio slugs Losov in the face. Later, John comes by the shop and asks if Losov came by, and Aurelio gives John his name to confirm that's who took his car and killing his dog. Even later that night, Vico calls Aurelio to ask why he struck Losov. Aurelio says because he stole John's big car and killed his dog. Vico simply replies, "Oh." John takes a sledgehammer into the basement and begins smashing the floor open. He uncovers a stash of guns and bullets. Vigo meets with Losov in his home to discuss the situation. He soaks his son twice in the stomach to reprimand him, reminding him who he just committed a crime against. Vigo tells Losov that John was associated with him once until he met Helen and decided to leave. John apparently had a reputation as the bogeyman, or rather the guy they called to kill the bogeyman. Vigo calls John up and to try and resolve the matter, but John hangs up on him. Vigo sends a team of masked hitmen to John's home to kill him. However, John gets the drop on them and takes them all out with ease. He shoots them down and ends up fighting the last few before stabbing the last guy through the heart. John then calls to clean up the crew to dispose of the bodies. This is not the first time they have done business with John, and they know it won't be the last. Vigo meets with Marcus and asks him to kill John's Wick for a new contract that he is put out worth $2 million. He also instructs his assistant Abby to call for others to take the job. Marcus accepts. John goes to a hotel, the Continental, to stay as he conducts his business. There he sees a woman he recognizes known as Perkins. John meets another old friend, Winston, over trying to find Losef. At night, Marcus gets to the roof of the building across the street and prepares his rifle to aim into John's room. From the mirror, he sees someone entering. He flies a shot to warn John. It's Perkins. She starts shooting at John while he tries to dodge her. She tells him that Vigo has doubled the contract if she breaks up the rules of the hotel. He eventually gets Perkins in a hard headlock and offers her mercy if she tells him where to find Losef. She tells John that he is in the bathhouse downstairs in the hotel. John then knocks Perkins out and leaves her with his associate Harry. John goes into the club bathhouse where Losef and his buddies are. As soon as they spot John, he begins shooting at them while Losef runs away. John kills every hitman in his path, but he loses Losef as he flees in a getaway car. Harry keeps Perkins cuffed to a chair, unaware that she has dislocated her thumb to slip out. She gets out and puts a pillow over Harry's face before shooting him. John goes to a church where Vigo keeps his secret/money. After shooting the other goons in the church, John forces the priest to guide him to where the money is. He lights it all on fire. Vigo learns of the fire moments before he is caught in a hail of gunfire courtesy of John. Although he kills most of Vigo's men, he is knocked out when an SUV rams into another, throwing John off his feet. Vigo captures him and wonders why he's gone to great lengths for revenge. John tells him that the dog was a gift from his dying wife and that Losef took that from him. Vigo leaves him with his henchmen for them to suffocate him with a plastic bag. However, Marcus is watching from the next building and he shoots one hitman in the head to let John take out of the car. John gets his gun and shoots at Vigo's getaway car, leaving only him alive. Vigo is forced to tell John that Losef is hiding in a safe house in Brooklyn. The safe house is guarded by armed men, but none of that stops John from killing them and storming the place. Losef once again tries to make a run for it, but John catches him and finishes him off. In retaliation for Losef's death, Vigo has his goons find Marcus and bring him to Vigo's home. There they beat him good until Vigo and Perkins shoot him to death. Vigo calls John to tell him this just before boarding a chopper out of there. Before going to chopper, Perkins cornered by four men led by Winston, who tells her she broke the rules of the Continental. The four men execute her. John finds Marcus' body and sets off to take Vigo's down. He finds the villains heading to the chopper and tries ramming into them with his car. Vigo makes Avi go out and kill John, only for John to run into him with his car. Vigo tries to put John's car over the edge, but John gets out safely. The two men fight hand to hand in the rain. Vigo tries to stab John, but John pushes the blade into himself before grabbing it and sticking it in Vigo's neck. He leaves him to die. We go back to the first scene where John is still bleeding. After watching the video with Helen, he is inspired to keep on going. He goes into a dog shelter and tends to his stab wound. He then takes a dog with him and they go home together. It is the third and true formula of one last job assignment. A long-time bad guy leaves the life of crime in pursuit of peace and quiet, but naturally gets dragged back to his old hunts and habits to settle a final score. But John Wick fits accelerating life into this third premise thanks to some dazzling action choreography, stylish visual, and most importantly, a vintage anti-hero performance from Keanu Reeves. Towards the end of the film, a menacing Russian mobster remarks that the veteran hitman John Wick looks very much like the John Wick of old. Keanu Reeves looks very much like the Keanu Reeves of old, as well elegantly handsome and athletically lean. He looks fantastic at 50 and is comfortably securely back in action star mode. Not that he's been gone that long or deviated that much from this person, but this later stage but kicking does call him to mind Liam Neeson's recent resurgence in movies like Taken, The Grey, and Nonstop. After all these years, though he still quintessentially Kenyu, he radiates a zen-like calm which makes him simultaneously elusive and irresistible, especially in the face of great Mitham. There's still a boyish quality to his face, but it builds the wisdom of his years. He's smarter than he looks, but he's in no great hurry to get out of his way to prove it to you, at least not on screen. He just is. A character like John Wick is right in Reeves' wheelhouse because it allows him to be coolly, almost methodically confident, yet deliver a amusing deadpan one-liner with detached Persian. This is when traces of the playful characters of his youth, Ted, Logan, and Johnny, take a moment of surface. But when the time comes, and it comes often in John Wick, he can deliver with a graceful yet powerful physicality. Soon after the death of his wife, the woman whose love inspired him to retire from his life as an expert Asian, Vic receives an unwelcome visit to his minimalist modern mansion in the middle of the night. Russian head guys have come to steal his prized 1969 Mustang and they kill his dog in the process. The latter act is horrifying in itself. What's even worse is that the adorable beagle puppy Daisy was a posthumous gift to John from his dying wife, who knew he would need someone else to love. By the way, is barely even a person. She's an image on a smartphone video clip, a body lying in a hospital bed suffering from an unspecific disease. She is an idea, but her loose provides Vic with a melancholy that lingers over his demeanor and every decision he makes. Vic wants no time underneath his stashed arsenal and seeking revenge. It turns out that the group's reckless young leader, Losov, is the son of a former associate of Vic's mob boss Vico Stresfo, who is fully aware of Vic's killing capacity. Also in the mix is William Dafoe as an expert sniper who may or may not be on Vic's side. Once the premise is established in the script from Derek Kolstad, it's a scene after scene of Vicks taking out entire room full of people who are foolish enough to stand in his way. This is not exactly a complicated genre from a narrative perspective, but directors who work as a filmmaking team, although Leach technically takes producing credit, are both veteran stuntmen who clearly know what they are doing when it comes to this kind of balletic action. Stelishki got his break 20 years ago when he served as a stunt double following Brandon Lee's deadly accident while shooting The Crow, and went on to perform as Reeves' stunt double in the Matrix trilogy. Leach's work includes dubbing for Brad Pitt in Fight Club and Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and Matt Damon in The Bourne Ultimatum. All those years of experience and exposure gives your film a level of confidence you don't ordinarily see in the first time directors. They are smart enough to let the intricate choreography speak for itself. They let the fight scenes play out without relying on a lot of non-setting shaky cam or QC narrate edits, which sadly have become the aesthetic standard of late. But beyond the execute brutality they put on display, they've also got an eye for artistry, with cinematographer Jonathan Silla helping convey an ominous sense of underworld suspense. Early senses are so crispy, desaturated, they look back and bite, from the cloudy, rainy skies over Vic's wife's funeral to his head to toe wardrobe to his sleek slate grey Mustang as Vic begins to immerse himself in the criminal world he would escape. Other scents pop in their vibrancy, the deep green of a secret members only cocktail bar, or the rich red of a Russian bad guy's shirt under an impeccably tailored suit. While the body count grows numbing and respective, John Wick actually is more compelling in the aesthetically heightened, specifically detailed world it depicts. It's New York City of the here and now, but Wick is fellow Assyrians and other sundry reinforcement source occupy their own parallel version of it, which is on peculiar rules which almost seem quaint. They have their own currency, gold coins reminiscent of pirates, doubloons which can be used for goods and services or just as thanks for a favor, and they frequent an upscale downtown hotel and bar called the Continental. From the wire is the unflappably polite manager, a sort of safe zone where protocol dictates that peace prevails and well where killing is cause of dismissal. The courtliness of it all provides an amusing and welcome contrast to the non-stop carnage. It is a perfect marriage of artist and repertoire. Keanu Reeves fit trim and 50s steering in an action first story second movie that years ago would have knocked him dead at the drive-in. John Wick is a sleek, propulsive and ridiculous crime picture that strikes like an automatic machine gun and has just as much subtlety. But its confidence and Ellen allow the story to take surrealist turns, more Borman's Point Blank than Bigelow's Point Break. John Wick begins with a cool montage that almost apes the set Kenny meme. Our leading man, John Wick, who is almost always referred to by his full name and why not when it's that cool, is mourning the loss of his spouse in a modern suburban home that looks primed for a photoshoot in Dibble magazines. Before succumbing to disease, his wife organized the delivery of a puppy. Senma's most adorable pet seems Almighty Oogie to give him something to love as he tries to heal. When John Wick later runs afoul of some Russian gangsters who want to take his car, he tells them to buzz off in their native tongue. The thugs, led by Game of Thrones Alfie Allen, invade him home late night, give him a beat down, steal his wheels, and kills the poach. One phone call later, John Wick lets everyone know that the demon is out of the bottle. When Alan's Brady as Punk Losov didn't realize was that John Wick used to be the top hit man for his father Vico. John Wick had effectively bought himself a right to a peaceful retirement through Hutch clean levels of mob enforcement, and now that the quiet has been shattered by the whisper of dead doggy, look out. Veteran stuntmen and second unit directors Chad Stahelski and David Leitch making their debut as features directors stage the action with a fast clarity. John Wick kills his way through neon nightclubs, art deco inspired hotel rooms and eerily lit churches. Unlike say the work of John Woo, there isn't reliance on slow motion which affords the bullet director to the head gun for a holy cow. Did he just do that? Shock value. When you think you have seen John Wick twist in the most acrobatic way to blast the baddie, sneaking up behind him, he strike another props that tops it. Of course, a movie about a relentless vengeance machine can only go for so far. John Wick ups its game by stopping it for the night and a hotel of contract killers, opening a door into a criminal underworld that in lesser hands would seem silly. Like, for example, Frank Miller and Robert Rogers' recent Sin City a Dame to kill for in the urban environment of John Wick, an entire service industry of drivers, cleaners, and bellmen live by night, and a code of ethics that naturally can be bent for the right price. One of the worst things I can say about John Wick is that I would really love to see more movies set in this world, and they don't necessarily have to star these characters, but hopefully from the same characters as they handle on this milieu feels refreshing and new. From the use of color and music to the scenery, chomping by sporting players William Dafoe and Lion MC Shane. These are guns bursting with a love for genre cinema but aren't too enslaved by affection to let in a little air. There's a wonderful free spirit with the use of New York City locations that reaches verisimilitude for storytelling. The surrogates courthouse downtown is actually a Bosch dance club with an interior of surface equips for staffs who in their right mind would disaster. So much recent action cinema feels the need to be gritty, realistic and dark. John Wick is the fun alternative we have been waiting for. John Wick is out on 23rd October in USA and Australia and 2nd January 2015 in UK. Starring Keanu Reeves as a retired hitman forced back into the game by the inconsequential actions of a mafia boss, spoiled son John Wick pokes fun at numerous convictions of the action genre. It replaces the murder and or kidnapped family members of the likes of Taken and Death Wish with a dead dog. It hypes up its leading man to a point in which he even gets his own twisted horror movie like Lou Labby. It features not just one but two revenge plots. It creates an impossible world in which guns for hire have their own little society with its own currency and services industry. It has a secondary character that strangles people with her own hair for crying out loud. The movie is full of gags, some discreet, others more in your face, and it's impossible not to let out at least a chuckle during scenes such as John casually greeting a fellow hitman at a killer's only hotel while in the middle of the fight. But as is usually the case of any good action movie parody, John Wick isn't all about the jokes. It is also a properly entertaining action flick with breathtaking pacing and amazing fight scenes conducted by fight coordinators Jonathan Ayospio and John Valera. The first proper fight sequence inside John's house and the one inside the Red Circle nightclub, in which the rhythm of the gunshots is matched to the beat of the music, are particularly noteworthy. The after-mentioned scene in which John is nearly strangled to death by a woman's ear, it is just as riveting as it is prosperous. From car chases to hands-on combat, John Wick has action consequences for all kinds of fans of the genre, and they are all expert, choreographed, and shoot. Jonathan Sales' camera work leaves no room for confusion about what is happening on the screen, and the film's full of contrast color scheme lends a dreamy atmosphere to its action sequences, making them all the more enthralling. Again, the red circle scenes comes to mind as the movie's high point with its remarkable shades of red, blue and black as well as the ballet-like camera movements. As John dances with Joseph Trussoff and his henchmen, so does the movie dances with us. Another aspect of John Wick that is worthy of note is Worth Building, written by Derek Kolstad. The story is full of little details of that leaves us wondering about this uncanny universe inhabited by John and his colleagues, from the Continental Hotel to the gold coins that make up the soul-crunching separate in his criminal underworld. The film is full of nuggets that point to the existence of a larger world that we just aren't seen in its entirety. It's not hard to do the existence of large world that we just aren't seeing in the fulfilling franchise with numerous fans devoted to cataloging and understanding the particular of its universe. Why John Wick loses itself in a series of unearned deaths. But at the same time, it becomes evident why John Wick earned as many sequels as it did. It can also be difficult to keep yourself interested in the film up until its very end. You see, John Wick peaks relatively early, somewhere around the 1 hour mark. Its last 40 minutes are somewhat of a drag, even if they are still packed full of gunshots, explosions, and physical brawls. The problem is that John Wick has a protagonist that is too awesome for its own good. After a while, seeing him dispose of enemies with little to no effort becomes repetitive. Not even getting him briefly captured by mafia boss Viggo Trasov is enough to break the cycle. Trasov and his minions might look threatening, but you just know that John Wick is going to take them all down in the blink of an eye, and not in that he's the hero. So of course he's going to win kind of way. You know he will succeed it because as the movie itself tells you there is no real competition for John. The actual stakes are very low. And the fact that the movie doesn't really work on Vigos as its final billion doesn't do much to help its second half. Sure, it makes some thematic sense of him to be John's real memories. His son took someone that John loved, and John took someone from him. They used to be associates, perhaps even good friends. They are both men marked by grief and guilt, and so on. Still, the film doesn't actually do anything to make us loathe Vigo as much as we loathe Lucef. Sure, he takes out John's friend Marcus William Dafoe, but Marcus is also not that compelling of a character to begin with. It is always said when a film underutilizes William Dafoe. In that sense, John Wick is a proper tragedy. The death of Mr. Perkins, the aforementioned hair strangler, feels equality under-earned. Perhaps in a later installment of the franchise, with the word of John Wick more properly developed, we could care that she broke the Continental rule, but as it is, this tip of information just feels extremely important. Granted, as a scene, her death is by far the most impressive of the entire film, but as the end of a subplot, it has no real impact. As a matter of fact, it is hard to understand why Perkins is even present for the second half of the movie. But John's big greatest crime when it comes to character's death is the demise of Joseph Tressel. Let me level with you real quick. Before watching John Wick nearly a decade after its release, I was not aware that they killed his dog. Even with all the time I spent online, I managed to get that spoiler all wrong. For some reason, I was under the impression that they kidnapped the dog, and that Vic's entire journey was well about getting her back. When Losov killed Daisy with his own two hands, I was horrified and I was angry. I wanted to see that bastard pay, as I imagine most, if not all of you did. And yet Losov's death was so quick and unimpressive that I had to rewind just to make sure that it was actually him and not one of his henchmen that got shot. It is the one death that actually feels earned in the whole film. But the pleasure of finally seeing Losov get his comeuppance is completely taken from us. None of this takes away John Wick's merits. Overall, the movie is still an entertaining watch, exciting and often quite beautiful to look at. And as a parody, there is no doubt that John Wick succeeds in making us laugh at the absurdities of the action genre. But as an earnest action movie, John Wick commits that is perhaps the gravest of sins. Instead of going out with a bang, it fades slowly, leaving viewers drained instead of pumped. It is perhaps a good first episode for a long saga, seeing how well it does in presenting its universe and its main character. But as a stand-alone film, it just feels like there is something missing. Have you ever bought a Mudvayne record? Remember that uneasy feeling when you started skipping through songs and found out that you were sold a glorified single padded with like 11 shitty songs. This is what going to the movies feels like to me. Hollywood is marketing every movie I loved back to me over and over again, repacked and stripped of the original excitement of finding something that hadn't been done before. John Wick isn't exactly an oasis of originality, but it's a cohesive project that always remains within itself and that delivers the kind of experience several other movies failed to before. I usually have very little patience for movies like John Wick, but it's a real of a Bret Hart like excellence of executions. John Wick is not your normal retired hitman. He is a dormant killing machine who looked out, found the one and carved up a little word for himself out of blood and bone fragment. When his wife Helen passes away from an unnamed disease, she has the delicacy to buy John a beggar puppy, so he doesn't have to give a loan. Unfortunately, a run-in with a former business associate's son ends up in a home invasion, cracking and puppy murder, which confronts John Wick to the issue that his past life has been. He is faced with a choice: run away or erase his previous existence by the way of mass murder. Fortunately for us, Vic chooses the second option. Don't fuck with a man's dog, seriously. It will be even worse if the man doesn't have any children. He will feel the equivalent of maternal instinct towards his pet. It's a life from his entirely responsible of a source of pride and unconditional love he will be most protective of. The premise of John Wick might seem ludicrous, and in many ways it is. Puppy murder is about the worst possible cliche, but the movie is so simple that it works here. John Wick is a man who uses murder as a primary form of communication, and the cold blooded murder of his puppy not only triggers this reptilian instinct of scorched earth revenge in him and in the spectator, but since it was a symbol of his wife's love, it needlessly plunges him into grief a second time. The empathy mechanism it triggers are basic, but you can end up feeling for the guy, even if he is cold-blooded murderer. Jomic can be an idiosyncratic viewing experience because it's not meant to be deep and dialogues lines are paper thin. Its most successful aspect is that it implements the narrative philosophy of a graphic novel without being gimmicky like Sin City or Zack Snyder's endurance run of a Watchmen adoption. The storyline of John Wick flows from one well-studied frame to another like the boxes of a comic book. You know how there often are wordless pages in a graphic novel. John Wick thrives are reproducing the exhilarating feeling into his action scenes. That's why Keanu Reeves was hired to play in this movie because directors and David Leitch needed a graceful and agile action veteran instead of someone with a Shakespearean range like, let's say. John Wick is a movie that understands its strengths and weaknesses. That said, I am little worried about John Wick's legacy. It's playing in the major leagues of glorification and sexualization of violence, and I wouldn't be surprised if some lonely cuckoo erupted in his high school or his workplace, wearing a black suit to shoot up the place because he thought John Wick looked red doing so. We are going through troubled times, and John Wick is vulnerable to becoming inspiration for violent and alienated ideas. Otherwise, it's an inspired movie that used kinetic and instinctive storyline in order to create an intensity of herself. It reminds me of The Crew, stripped of the graphic themes, the visual storytelling, choreographics. There's just aren't movies that are so unapologetic about what they are trying to be anymore. John Wick is a philosophical experience, but it's a great time and it's going to be remembered. There are good guys in John Wick, but there are some great actors working alongside Keanu Reeves in this darkest and most tormented role yet. A stunningly lethal contract killer who goes on a rampage after Russian thug murder is dog. Yes, his dog. If you can stomach the setup, then the rest is pure revenge movie gold. As Reeve reminds what is a compelling action star he can be, while the guy who served as his stunt double is the Matrix makes a remarkable, satisfying directorial debut, delivering a clean, efficient, and incredibly assured thrill with serious breakout potential, thanks in part to Summit's simultaneous Lemax release. That unsung hero is Chad, the stunt guru who stepped into Brandon Lee's shoes on the crew and spent the next 2 decades absorbing all the behind the scenes filming lessons that makes John Wick such a technically impeccable actioner. Whereas the tendency among many other Helmers is to jostle the camera and cut fringeality in the misguided belief that visual confusion generates excitement. That do you understand what a thrill well choreographed action can be when we are actually able to make out what's happening. And that's why Reeves serves as just the right star to play Vic, a short fuse and Thurio whose ridiculous moniker clumsily conveys his explosive temper. There's nothing clumsy about the actor who plays Vic. However, as Reeves' little physicality enables extended sequences in which he moves athletically through an environment full of adversaries, shooting, stabbing, or otherwise immobilizing them on one time. Since brutality efficient action sequences are in such short supply these days, the fact that John Wick delivers no fewer than half a dozen home invasions, hotel room, Red Sulker Club, church, parking lot, Brooklyn, safe house, grand finale more than exclusive Kolstad's lame brain script. Basically, the idea is to mislead audience into believing that Reeves' character is a mild-mannered family man, compressing the preceding few months of personal tragedy into a montage in which Vic visits his wife in hospital and attends her rain-drenched funeral and weeps upon receiving her final gift, a pure trained puppy named Daisy. This intro doesn't exactly position Vic as someone Russian mobsters would refer to as the bogeyman, but of course everyone in the theater already shows what's coming. For from fooling anyone, this money opening merely provides an awkward bit of melodrama to get past before the crunch can commence, which it does soon enough. When Game of Thrones gone, Elif Allen playing the British son of a Russian crime boss improbably shows up at a rural gas station and offers to buy Vic prized 1969 Boss Mustang. When Vic declines, the punk and his friends decide to break into his house and help themselves, beating with which Vic baseball bats, smashing his things, snapping the poor dog's neck, and taking the Mustang on their way out. While killing a dog hardly seems enough to justify the meticulously orchestrated mayhem that follows, we should at least be grateful the pick doesn't impose some greater emotional trauma upfront, like forcing us to witness his wife's rape or murder, a death wish. This script waits until this moment when Losef takes the stolen Mustang to the shop to have its plates changed before revealing Vic's reputation. The fence nervously refuses to help, notifying Losef's relatively civilized mobsters that Vigo Trasov that his son has awakened a monster. One almost feels sorry for Stashlisky, who's been given such a soggy pulp screenplay to work with, and yet it's during these B-movie scenes that we start to feel what he can bring to the table. In terms of material, John Wick is nothing special, but there's a safe elegance to the way Stashlisky and Leach approached this thoroughly generic project, seizing the opportunity to deliver some pretty set pieces along the way. The result, photographed in sleek, steady head windscreen by William Sigmund Protege, Jonathan Silla, looks more like Richard Nicholson's winding refunds pics than relatively sloppy studio fare. Right down to school neon lit shootouters, relying on a mix of heavy metal and electronic music from the likes of Marilyn Manson, Tyler Bates, and Caridia to generate propulsive forward energy. Needless to say, Joseph and his thugs picked the wrong guy to mess with. But their mistake wasn't stealing Vic's car and killing his dog. Their mistake was not killing Vic when they had the chance. As written, anyone seen on screen is bad to some degree, from the leather minx who protects the belt where Vigo stores his valuable, which means every bullet fired potentially stands to make his corrupt underworld a better place. Evidently, evil is relative, and some of these killers are more sportive of Vic than others, including Defoe's Marcus, a fellow sharpshooter who intervenes wherever Vic finds himself in a particularly Thai sport, and Lane Mashan, who plays the manager of the film, was inspired location a high-end hotel for assistants where the house rules demands that not killing to be done on premises. Clearly, John Wick isn't set in the real world, but rather in the sort of heightened parallel dimensions that gamers ask for target practice, where they must constantly be on their guard as goons pop up from behind objects and around corners. That's effectively how we experience the better part of the movie, tagging along as Vic hunts down Joseph and brings down Vigo entire criminal organization in the process. With long greasy hair and wispy facial hair, Reeves isn't nearly as tough or intimidating as your typical revenge movie hero, but his star person helps to make the film more fun, or at least or let less bleak than downbeat classic as Rolling Thunder. And Get Carter, all that violence won't bring Daisy back, but it helps to clear enough space in Vic's cold blooded heart for another dog. Maybe he's not so bad after all. John Wick is a grieving widower who also happens to be a deadly, albeit retired Asian when gangsters kill his dog, a final present from his dead wife. He unretires himself to ensure that they understand the grievous nature of their error. I did not expect much of John Wick. I had heard that it was violent and revenge filled, and I turned to it when I wanted something hour violent and revenge filled. I was hoping for an hour or so of justified violence, some exciting car chases, and a satisfying resolution. I misjudged John Wick. It absolutely is a satisfying and violent revenge fantasy filled with gunfire and martial arts. But it's also more than that. A better, more thoughtful film is interwoven with the action. The first 10 or so minutes are incredibly well done. They paint a convincing portrait of John Wick's lonely existence, his grief slowly alleviated by the dog, as a portrait of loss and redemptions. It's gentle, convincing, and clever. When the action ramps up, much of that grace is lost, but it serves to fully establish and justifying the protagonist's action. When a simple retelling of the plot, a guy killed his dog so he kills everyone, fails to do so. John Wick takes place in the world that should be familiar from Blade and every other 19th action film. Unrepresented gangsters, courses in elaborate clubs, throwing diamonds to half-naked waitresses and firing guns whenever they feel like it. The underworld is more prominent than the overworld, and authorities, civilians are basically absent. It's conscient of the journey, but it's a fun one, and I have no problems whatsoever with it. It's pretty film aiming for artistic rather than realistic. I vastly prefer the somewhat studied appearance of the shows to the self-consciously gritty style with lots of shaking cameras and confusion. If you are going to be self-conscious about filmmaking, at least produce something worth looking at. The subtitles are a little over the top. I find too stylish relative to the rest of the film, but I can see what they were going for. Just like the word, the look of John Wick is hyper real society and spectacle highlighted and refined rather than making an attempt at realism. The action is everything that you could hope for. A range of guns and other weapons make an appearance. People leap all over the place and guards are taken down with style and flair. The fight scenes are over the top and occasionally ridiculous, but it is part of the draw for this kind of film. Glass smashes, light flashes, and techno music pounds. It's fun. Mention should be made of the supporting cast. Keanu Reeves plays his part well, but to my mind, the best character was William Dafoe playing a grizzled hitman. Those of you who don't share my admiration for William Dafoe, no matter what film he is in, Michael Nyqvist is one to watch. As a mob boss who know he's doomed from early on but plays his part to the end. He's exceptional. What surprised me most about this film was how sensitive it was. Yes, it's a violent romp, but chaotic and fights aside, it's more of a western than it is an action film. There is a clear moral and social code that every character lives by, and a sense of gloomy inevitability to the way the whole thing plays out. Valiant films are not known for their thematic depth or consistency, but John Wick is a deeper and more thoughtful film than it would first appear. I really liked this film. I am a little worried that it will suffer the same fate as so many surprisingly good films, in that the sequels will be made by people who have no idea what made the first film good, but as a stand alone, it's far better than I expected, and one of the best action films I have ever seen ages. I would recommend it. If you like my work, buy me a virtual cup of coffee at Kofi. I have been hearing a lot about John Wick, played by Keanu Reeves, but mainly as a meme. Basically, if you kill Big Stokes, he comes after you with a vengeance. I didn't really know what it meant. I knew there were three big films out and a fourth pending. I thought maybe the movies were based on a book series or something. They are not. So when I was at my local public library yesterday and saw the 2014 original John Wick, I figured why not? Knowing nothing about the film or the characters, it was hard to get into at first. Who is this wounded, dying guy at the beginning? Why is he watching a video of a woman, apparently his wife Helen, on his phone as he bleeds out? Then the rest of the film has flashback. Since the movie is being out for 7 years, I don't think I am dropping any spoilers by saying that Vic was formerly an Asian for New York's Russian mob before meeting Helen and falling in love. He told his boss Vigo Tresov, the last Michael, he wanted out. Tresov assigned Vic an impossible assassination task as a condition, and when Vic completed the job, he had to honor it. Then Helen passes from a sudden terminal illness, which must have been difficult for Reeves to play given that his former girlfriend Jennifer James was killed in a car accident in 2001, and Vic is emotionally lost. However, before her death, Helen arranges for a beagle puppy to be delivered to Vic as something he could learn to love. He quickly bonds with the dog and then things go nuts. With the dog in the car while Vic is filling up his vintage 1969 Ford Mustang Mach 1 at a gas station, he encounters a trio of Russian mobsters, including Joseph Trasov, who he doesn't know. Losef spontaneously offers to buy Vic's car and curses at him in Russian when he doesn't. Vic answers him in Russian, which should have been Losef's first clue, and drives off. Later that night, the dog wakes Vic up and even thought his former Asians with a terrific rep. He is taken by surprise by Los Joseph and his two thuggish partners. They beat him up, kill the dog, and steal the car. This part one called BS of all the people we could have encountered by chance. He just happens to run into his old boss, spoiled, pampered son who thinks he can take whatever he wants. Then the kid does the one thing to pull Vic back into the world of murder, making it very personal. Joseph takes the car to a high-end chop shop to get a new VIN number and so on. But when the owner Aurelio sees it, he instantly recognizes it as Vic. Getting the story out of the Joseph, he is Joseph, who threatens to seek daddy to him. Once Daddy finds out why Aurelio hit this kid, he decides to hit Joseph several more times just for being stupid. Then the senior Tresvo calls Vic trying to fix things, but it doesn't work. The rest of the film is an adrenaline fueled violence fest with Vic hunting down Joseph and narrowly missing him. The body count starts going way up, however. In the meantime, Vigo contracts with Marcus, Vic's former mentor and friend, to kill Vic for $2 million. Apparently, Marcus willingly agrees. It's an open contract though, meaning that anyone can kill Vic to claim the money. We are introduced to the New York Continental Hotel and its concierge Georgian as well as the owner Winston. It's basically a refuge for Asians with one of the main rules that no associations take place in the hotel or associated club. Marcus see Wicks going in and reveal a high powerful rifle signaling to the audience that he plans to take Vic out. While taking with Winston in the club, he is spotted by someone who seems to be a former acquaintance, Mr. Perkins, who turns out to be nothing but trouble. From there, Vic traces Isov to another exclusive club, the Red Circle. Twice in the sequence, we see Vic spending a lot of time dressing in two different outfits with two different sets of weapons. I guess he thinks the clothes make the job, if not the man. Vic wades through bodyguards but not without being wounded himself. Isaf, who had been in a pool drinking with his mates and some girls, wearing nothing but a towel, manages to make it out the front and into a gateway car. Vic isn't too lucky, but he does get back to the Continental and orders a doctor to call him to patch him up. Afterwards, alone, Vic lies down and Marcus, on a rough tube across the street, puts him in his rifle sights just as Mrs. Perkins shows up to will Vic. Marcus shows Vic's pillows to warm him and a long drawn out fight ensues. Given how many men Vic has just killed with the greatest of ease, I found it difficult to believe that Perkins could be such a difficult foe. But then again, we do need strong female characters. Plus, to be fair, Vic is wounded, not expecting to be attacked since the hotel is a natural zone and Perkins is not just a bodyguard but an expert assassin. Eventually, Vic subdues her and leaves her in the car of a fellow assassin, Harry, who Vicky pays and instructs to catch and release. Perkins later turns the table on Harry and straightening up kills him. The hotel gives Vic a view car as compensation for his troubles being attacked by an assassin in violation of their natural policy. Vic then finds out where Tarso, a local bank, is an Orthodox Russian church. burns all of the assets, and when attacked, machine guns down half of Vico's goons. Unfortunately, Vic is captured but helped to escape gained by Marcus beforehand while Vico is sleeping with around. Vic breaks down and tells him why Daisy meant so much to him and why he wants to serve. After his escape and with some sort of bazooka in hand, Vic catches up Vigo and threatens to kill him if he doesn't hand over Isaf. Vigo reluctantly agrees and sits at home getting high while Vic hunts Isaf in a Brooklyn safe house. As predicted, Vic wipes out everyone, saving Iso for last, and who is still protesting it was only a fucking dog when he dies. But it's not over. Perkins sports Vic and Marcus together and tells Vigo and his Perkins barely Marcus torture him and finally murder him for betraying the contract. As a matter of honor, Winston informs Vic of what's happening, while Perkins is supposed to be waiting for Vic so he can kill him. Winston has her murdered for violating the hotel's rule. It was a satisfying scene. Climax in the rain as Vigo and the punks he got left are driving for a helicopter to escape. Predictably, after some difficulty, Vic kills everyone and also Vigo in left. They fight hand to hand, which is where Vic receives his near fatal wound. We see at the movie start, he kills Vigo and we end up full circle. Except Vic manages to pull himself together and breaks into the building, which as an animal shelter or vet's office. He uses the medical supplies there to bind himself up, decide to take a pit bull puppy with him, and they disappear into the night together. The guy probably needed to be in a hospital. I liked the club aspect of the film and an organization of killers with a code of honor, most of them anyway. Alfie Allen was the perfect choice to play Yusuf, and as I said, Adrian Palicki totally honored the role as Perkins, so much so that it was almost a prayer when he's definitely finally gone up. Technically, the film was very good and it was all shot on location in and around New York City. It took me a while to figure out who was who and what things were supposed to be. Finally, I looked up the movie online to get the backstory so what I would watch would make sense. As R-rated action violence films go, this one pretty good. As always, Reeves lends a great deal of intensity to the role of John Wick, who isn't always an easy guy to like. If you haven't seen this movie yet and my reviews make it sound interesting, then it wouldn't be a bad way to spend 101 minutes of your time. Okay. As my good friend and fellow dweeb Nick Allen once pointed out, middle-aged killing machines have become the new normal in contemporary Hollywood actions. Initiated by Lime Nonsense, Kirsty Jones Mills in The Taken, and expanded upon by Tom Cruise, Denzel Washington, and Pierce Brosnan. Minced bruisers have suddenly become an ubiquitous as the young pups running around in superhero gear. The cinematic canon gets a new number with the film John Wick. The titular part is inhabited by Keanu Reeves, who, you guessed it, knows Kung Fu and profiles an ex-mob enforcer drawn back into the criminal life after experiencing a brutal home invasion. A simple story that is for the most part gloriously executed, the film thrives on the cynicism of its action, the appealing hook of its word, and finally a pitch-perfect harnessing of Reeves' authoritative physicality. It's the most fun I've had at the movies this year. Utilizing a simple flashback structure, John Wick establishes its architectural type credentials very quickly through the introduction of Reeves' character, lying broken and bleeding in a lonely looking part of the Big Apple. We watch as Vic longingly watches a video of his wife on his iPhone and act with easily suggests that the lovely lady is long ago gone. These details, which establish Reeves as the film's proverbial man with nothing to lose, are relatively insignificant. as is the slide that eventually sets Vic on his bloody road to retribution. Essentially, a beastly creep named Joseph Alif Allen for the Game of Thrones decides to break into Vic's plush New Jersey home. After spotting him and his ride at a gas station, this little thug's goal is simple. He wants Vic's sweet ride for himself, but he ends up beating the man nearly to death and killing his dog, who is one of the cutest little beastie you will find on screen this year. In the process, this of course brings Vic back into the game. However, in order to get vengeance, he is forced to confront a large section of the Russian mafia, as Losef is the only son of crime boss Viggo's Michael Nyqvist. As one can summarize, John Wick, a ridiculously staged film featuring some of the oldest tropes of its genre. Not only is Reeves your archetypal monosyllabic authority, but he is timed by the death of his seemingly sanely wife, where you have heard that before. Strangely enough, none of this matters as John Wick proves its worth through its atmosphere and through its narrative thrust. The action sequences, for instance, are pervasive, especially during a scene where Vic pursues Losef through a swanky yet still sleazy New York nightclub and cuts through a number of mafia bodies with brilliant gun forcity. Reeves' obvious athleticism, so apparent in much of his work, comes across strongly here once again. At least to the uninitiated, all of the action is pretty brilliant, containing just enough lucidity to the powerful on the big screen, yet still feeling somewhat grounded in reality. The action can be best described as complementary to the work that director Chad Stahelski and writer Derek Kolstad concoct. An alternate universe of the hyperreal John Wick is defined by the idea that there is an immense criminal infrastructure existing underneath the facade of society. What this entails is never fleshed out as eloquently or comprehensively as something like The Matrix. However, it does lend itself to some hypnotic and humorous moments, such as where Vic checks into a hotel story reserved for hitmen, which comes complete with its own on-call doctor. All of the actors seem to be having a ball in his deranged reality, with several big name actors popping up in bit parts and with several members of the vast venerable cast appearing for good measures. William Dafoe plays another hitman who appears to be classed with Vic or at least on a fine name basis and seems to be enjoying himself immensely. A similar cold is struck by Lance Reddick, who plays the manager of the hotel where Reeves stays and provides some effective dry humor. However, this is still Reeves' film, and the actor gives a commanding performance stripped down to mainly utilizing his body. The actor's typical radiance and aloofness is paired well with the role of Vic, and Stacklist Films is congruent with what Mr. Allen noted about his artificial genre. The Middle Ages lead characters of John Wick and other titles mentioned above and emblematic of patriarchal worth, which targets youthful cretins that enormously believe they were round for the count. In John Wick, this raging anger is realized beautifully, and when Reeves' killer snaps at the end, screaming, "Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back," you realize that statement is true for both Wick and Reeves. Each man has returned to where they belong and to do what they do best. John Wick is one of the most unapologetically fun films you will see this year, full of stylish set pieces and boasting an excellent cast. It is a film that lives or dies on the quality of the action on display, and it delivers empathetically after the mishap that was 47. Ronin Keanu Reeves goes straight for the jugular in his triumphal return to the very top of action cinema. John Wick is pure entertainment and one of the most enjoyable films that you will see this year. Keanu Reeves is an underrated performer despite his stunts in some of the biggest action spectacles of the past 2 decades, there is a certain contingent that still don't recognize his qualities as an actor, besides his inability to age like a normal human being it seems. As the titular Vic Reeves given an imposing physical and emotional performance as a man grieving over the loss of his wife and his dog, a final parting gifting from his wife. It plays like some masterfully generic B-movie plotting, but backed by Reeves' raw performance, especially in a later scene where he ragingly announces that he is back in the criminal world he once left behind. It packs a sledgehammer hit of adrenaline and excitement as Reeves' Vic goes on the revenge trail. The action scenes are elegantly executed and have Reeves doing some of his best action work scenes. Since The Matrix, while action does not make a film alone, there is more than to the simple man seeks revenge plot. With a great list of sporting turns from recognizable faces, John Leguizamo, and a memorable villain that reigns the stakes quality-wise. As Vigo Trasovo, Michael has a ball as the head of John's former employees, whose son Losaf Game of Thrones Alfie Allen steal his car and kill his dog. Nyquist spends a lot of the film dealing with the aftermath of the destruction Vic causes, and some of his reactions and lines are priceless. But while not being a physical threat, he has more than enough manpower to be a match for his former employer. William Dafoe and Lion MC Shan both appear but are used sparingly, but their mere presence adds further prestige and class to proceeding, both having great interactions with Vic. This is especially evident with Vic's visit to the Continental, a hotel owned by MC Shane's Winston, and his own set of rules that apply to the hotel. John Wick is fast, fun, and thoroughly enjoyable filmmaking. Chad Stahelski and David Leitch, both of whom worked with Reeves on The Matrix, have an extraordinary eye for action spectacle, and their chemistry with Reeves is exceptional. This adds to a genuinely excellent cast, stylish cinematography, and a good soundtrack make John Wick undeniably the most fun of your will have with the film this year. The best action film of 2015, John Wick, is pure entertainment in every sense of the word, from thrilling and highly inventive action scene to a great sporting cast of big name stars. It takes a stale churn and adds some well needed style and class to the proceedings. The lethal former mob enforcer John Wick has much in common with the movie that bears his name. Both are lean, laconic, and single-minded, heroically overachieving corpse production engines that run with understand flair and ruthless efficiency. Where the man and the vehicle diverge is in the realm of public regard. John Wick is a truly legendary killer, the type of cold steel Asians whose very mention gives significant pose to the most fearless, formidable, and bloodthirsty bosses. Hitmen and goons, the underworld could possibly bleach up a man whose reputation not only precedes him but armors and enhances him against his enemies, who are both legion and, amusingly enough, overmatched. John Wick is a kinetic, though not necessarily balletic, high impact action movie with two clear aims. First, it seeks to be a visual worthy enough to contain amusingly enough overmatched. John Wick is a kinetic thought, not necessarily balletic high impact action movie with two clear arms. It clearly and desperately wants to be the kind of gritty, violent cult sleeper think Ripe or Bone Duck Saints that after failing its way through a necessarily brief theatrical run gains traction, notoriety and eventually stature. Then immortality in the home video war relief. It's strange to talk about potential cult fodder in the present tense. The 1970s, 80s, and 90s were full of these kinds of movies. The August and teens, I would argue without first researching, not as much realizing, of course, that those movies haven't had nearly the same time to breathe. Some were actually hugs, hits, some really eccentric choruses that stuck, but most all of them are still part of the cinematic vernacular. Even that's bust what one would assume were their expiration dates. John Wick nakedly aspires to be this kind of movie one day, and thought the strange shows in a few unseemly places. The results are generally promising. The film is impressive without being showy, overwrought without being hammy, dark without being stapling. It was a memorable and ridiculously qualified cast, visibly having a more than decent time, cobbles together an effective hero myth out of the little more than furtive glances and a couple of tense speeches, and offers complex, elastic, satisfying, multi-tiered action of the hand-to-hand shootout and automatic varieties. The mayhem once it starts really stops for a breath. All action films should aspire to this hotel level of efficiency. John Wick begins appropriately at a funeral. The audience recognizes Keanu Reeves immediately, rain-soaked and stoic above the grave, as an implicit focal point. Through other background info is illy political, incomplete, and slow in arriving. The funeral is for John's wife, Reeves, looters as the mourners disperse and the attendants begin their work. His face betrays little, but he appears stunned nevertheless. As he shuffles away, he is intercepted by, as it turns out, an old work colleague, William Dafoe, in full enigma mode, though from exactly where remains vague. There is palpable tension between them. Just wanted to check up on an old friend, Dafoe says before offering a parting handshake. The movie follows the next stage of John's retirement from his former job in a detached, matter-of-fact way. John wakes up and has breakfast. He wheels his mint-condition '69 Mustang out of its garage and travels to a suspiciously obscure racetrack proving ground where he pours out his rage and frustration in a display of spontaneous stunt rhyming that might make the producers of the Fast and Furious franchise at least consider flirting their coordinator. There is much to pour out. John Wick is reserved and respectful outwardly, but he just seems dangerous in ways the movie teases but is loath to reveal before it is absolutely necessary. At the very least, people continually seems to give him a whole breath. John receives an adorable beggar puppy as a present from his late wife, are taught him to help him start dealing with his grief in loving, constructive ways. At first, he is heartbroken all over again, but soon enough, the dog casts a spell on him. Tomorrow, slowly but surely, becomes better than today. One day, at a gas station, John is associated by a Russian gang, the leader of which brashly tries to buy his car on the spot. He refuses and is surprised later that night by home invaders who beat him bloody, steal his car, and carelessly kill his little dog here and only here when it's too late for the offending parties. does the movie finally show its hand, and watching them all scatter like roaches, get moved down like harvest wheat, or wither like time-lapsed fruit drying on the vine is so much of the fun of what follows. John Wick weeping over his late wife or deceased pet isn't just some guy you probably wouldn't want to mess with at a bar. He is an infamous former enforcer for the Russian mob with a stash of high-tech weaponry buried beneath his basement foundation, whom Reeves effectively plays as a natural disasters with a set target or a strict IED on a delayed but inevitable fuse. The movie treats him as something almost primal. He is quite simply a matter of terrible fact. None of this qualifies as any sort of spoiler. Really, the chop shop owner, a fabulous Twice John, to whom the gang attempts to sell the stolen car, instead runs them out of his establishment and nervously, respectfully calls John to give him the heads up. The big mob boss himself, Michael, rough-edged and imperious, whose haunted son and their apparent incited the heist smuggling tries with some desperation. I mean, how many dons traditionally have allowed anyone in their organization to simply retire to reason with John instead of John just arrogantly ordering his death when a contract becomes the only option. John becomes the target of early hideout in the five boroughs, including cunning Femi Fatal, accent on both Adrian Pellicki and old friend Defoe, a canny, deadly, and deadly confident sniper. Vic checks into a luxury underworld hotel where, in a delightful twist, detente between varying guests is enforced by the staff. What a kick to see the wires lands predict in a bit part as the concrete of indeterminate accent and uses it as the base from which to launch his assault, which will see him in turn demolish a packed disco, an underground bathhouse, several hotel rooms, a warehouse, and a waterfront pier. The action is fast moving and stylish, excessive without being exhaustive, well staged, well photographed, and steady throughout as John demonstrates endless variations on an innovative and fairly thrilling form of execute close quarters gun combat with pistols for all intents and purpose standing in for this first ever being punched in the face with the bullet or five it hurts. Vic even give the head bouncer the option of taking the night off, which knowing the risk he heartily expects great moment. Praise is due the film first and foremost for its executive casting, which accomplishes a lot of heavily lifting with minimal effort. A spiritual throwback to idiosyncratic thrills like Driver or even say Blood Simple, where the veritable rugs gallery of faces says almost all that's necessary about its characters before their test mouths even have a chance to open. What exactly about Land Marchand's Deadwood weathered features and smugly definite attitude projects weaknesses or incompetence when has William Dafoe ever been anything close to an open book on screen? If the movie requires a summary, spineless henchman to beat on for a while, who better to play with him on Steen Winters? After 4 years of watching Game of Thrones, no one should need a refresher on the type of hoagie. In Title Dispatch, Elif Allen specializations in playing his trust fund mobster in the only person in the entire movie who doesn't instantly acknowledge the threat Vic poses. Though he is educated in due time and thoroughly, it's always a pleasure to watch great character actors work, and for a movie that so often seems in a heading rush to recount the next killing zone or spring it like a jack in the box. John Wick affords its talented resemble the chance to make not just a cool entrance but a lingering impressions. As for the title Seeker of Vengeances reveals allows us occasionally peeks at the very deep soul beneath all that Kevlar and simmering hate, but largely lets his prodigious actions speak louder than words. It is very sound strategy. The film shows like a high thresher but never quite bites off more than it can handle. It seems a simple mechanism which only bleeds its relatively careful construction. Moreover, I don't buy that John Wick is that kind of role anyway could play in part because of its extreme physicality, but also due to the creatives it seeks to the project. This doesn't feel like a role Liam Neeson turned down. For all the success, Keanu Reeves has been routinely mocked throughout his career just about whenever he opens his mouth, but he also has an inherent intensity that moves all too often squandered, misdirect or snuff out altogether. John Wick is the first movie of his I have seen since the original Matrix to make excellent use of it and creates in the process a mysterious, disturbingly capable and hero, knowable but still relatable, one who gives no quarter, offers no apologies and wastes not a single word, the kind in other words who might indeed just stand the test of time. When it comes to action films these days, I find they have become somewhat like bow bands, overly similar and rather trying after a while, until something a bit different enters the ring. Keanu Reeves is an actor that I would consider as rather typecast, with the exception of Bill and Ted, always playing in the dark heart as Neil's protagonist, and maybe John Wick is no exception to that rule. But perhaps it is exactly what the action genre has been waiting for to break the mold. Reeves plays the titular John Wick, an ex-mob hitman aptly named Baba Yaga, the Russian name for the bogeyman. But to quote the film, John Wick is the man who you sent to kill the bogeyman, and rightly so. After falling in love with the woman of his dreams, Vic gives up his life of fighting and killing. 5 years on after the death of his wife, John's only real companion is a dog his deceased partner had left to him to keep him from loneliness. Okay, bear with me here a second. I know this sounds like another typical action flick when a group of thugs led by Joseph Tressov, played and by Elif Allen, Game of the Thrones, break into John's house, beat him to a pulp, steal his gun, and worst to all, kill his furry friend. It leaves a bad taste in John's mouth, learning the identity of Losov, the son of Russian's gangster Viggo Strasov, who happens to be John's former boss. John wreaks havoc on those who have wronged him. I cannot explain any further about the details of the plot because I truly believe anyone reading this who may be a movie fan should go and watch this as soon as possible. But what I can say is that compared to most action films, the fighting scenes are truly spectacular, introducing an adaptation of a fighting style not dubbed gunfu, which can be seen in such films as Equilibrium, Wanted, Face Off, and The Matrix. This film does not disappoint. One scene is particular, sparing the bloody details, involves Vic dispatching a rather large group of bad guys, and still to this day I cannot think of another recent action film that has had such a stylish and brutal combat sequence. The only major flaw I see in this movie is that of the typical Reeves character, even though it would works incredibly well. I still feel like maybe watching him punch, kick, shoot, and gently tear everything down has become a bit repetitive by seeing that he does manage to pull it off all rather well. An exhilarating, engaging, and fun film to watch, and you would better believe that John Wick will be back to kill some more bogeymen over the next few years. Good action movies seem to be hard to come by these days, particularly when pursuing Hollywood's rather filmy offering of late. Captain America: The Winter Soldier was one of my top movies of the last 18 months, but I don't necessarily classify it as an action movie as it serves as part of a large franchise being built by Marvel Studio, and frankly, comic book adoptions are so plentiful and influential these days. They have carved out a genre all to themselves. When I say action movies, I am referring to smash mouth throwdowns where the good guy faces seemingly insurmountable odds in his her quest to stop the terrorists, gangsters, criminals, rivals from achieving their nefarious aims with nothing more than a few deadly skills saved for just such an occasion and a few choices quips to dispense whilst doing so. Films audience have evolved to a certain extent, so action films fans have come to expect a little more from their bullet fest than the standard phase of the late 18th and 19th. But ultimately, the most important thing with any action film is the entertainment factor. If you can't have some damn fun while sending the crook straight to hell, what's the point? The most recent offerings in this genre are awful nostalgia wankfest that doesn't seem to understand that modern does not a mere reliance of CGI, as if visual effects are some kind of directly word to fill in the gaps where the stars are not capable of providing the physical performance particular scenes requires. A good modern action movie in my eyes should address that what we live in today is different. People have many preoccupations and concerns. Geopolitics have changed. The roles of men and women in society have shifted somewhat since the last decades, and this is nothing for action filmmakers to be afraid of. John Wick is an action movie that attempts to embrace change and is largely successful for it. Keanu Reeves makes a very satisfying role to the genre as the title character, a legendary hitman so skilled and fearless that he is referred to by his former employer as the boogeyman. When we meet Vic in their film, he is grieving after the loss of the love of his life, Helen, when a crime boss's son, who happens to be the offspring of his former employers, steals Vic's car and kills his dog, a final gift from his wife. He snaps and becomes a vengeful force of nature, determined to ensure that those who have wronged him pay the price. At its core, John Wick is a simple story and not one that any action film fan should be unfamiliar with. But sometimes the simplest of stories are the most effective. Reeves back to his iconic past after a couple of crappy misfires recently as a remorseless killing machine driven by a single purpose. He is not required to provide too much emotional evocation, and that's just fine with me. When he is in a film that keeps his dialogues to a minimum, Reeves is able to convey his message through his looks and mannerisms in such a way that you just can't help but stop and say, damn, that dude is cool. He smolders his way through the film in a blistering yet sheer style that is unique to him. So much so that you simply cannot imagine anyone else being John Wick. The rest of the cast all fill out their roles well. Viggo Trasov is a fun villain and give lots of nervous Berman by Michael Nyqvist. Alfie Allen is fine as his bumbling son Losap, who draws John's ire. William Dafoe is reliable as always as his friend and colleagues. Marcus and Lan. MC Shane has a cameo as Winston the owner of the hotel that caters exclusively to Asians. MC Shane is great, but then the way is always, as a friend of mine who has seen the movie says, the party don't start till Lovejoy gets here. Look it up, folks. Lovejoy is awesome. It was refreshing to see a female character taking on the role of a bad guy, and Adrian Palicki really realized the opportunity to play a stone cold killer. Though her dialogue isn't plentiful, it does not need to be as clearly lets her ample fighting skills to do the talking. There's great confrontation with the character MC Perkins and John Wick in a hotel room that is thrilling and fantastically entertaining. The key thing that John Wick gets right is that it remembers that action movies have to be fun. The film is directed by Chad Stahelski and David Leitch, two first-time directors who previously worked with Reeves on The Matrix, and the influence of that film and many others is clear to see. The action sequences are brilliant, hyper-kinetic bullet ballast, and the car chases sequences feel more authentic than anything I've seen a while, and the cinematography wisely stays away from the usual visual tropes. Although there is a slow motion walking away from an explosion shot that every action movie seems to use, but I can forgive them for that one. But a minor complaint about the pacing of the film in part and some old location choices. John Wick delivers one heck of a fun ride. It's great to see that action movies are not permanently confined to straight to DVD fare that makes you want to wash your eyes out for fear of being infected by their sharpness. And I for one hope that this is the last of a revival of for this once influential genre and for its leading man. If you're going to do revenge flick, a puppy and a 90s Mustang are good reasons to seek it. I had been hearing about John Wick for years, the chorus growing louder as the box office receipts to its sequels grew larger. From 43 million for the first to $92 for the second, to this year $171. It's certainly atmospheric and moody, but not crushingly so. It's got a light touch and even vague humor. The Continental Hotel, for example, which is owned by Winston's Eye and run by the impassible Charon, is not just a landing spot of criminals on the run, a safe place as it were, where no one can do business on the premises. It's almost overt, otherworldly, particularly from Reddick. You get an overlook hotel vibe. The whole thing, of course, is orthodoxly in the way of Hollywood crime gangster movie. These people live in a world not like ours. You take care of 12 Asians in your house, calmly make a dinner reservation for 12, and superficial cleanup men arrive to remove the evidence. Cops are not a factor. The rule law is not a factor. What these men have instead of the law is a code. No business at the Continental is just one aspect of it. It's throughout. Who do you trust and who are the ones who just get sloppy? You don't tug on Superman's cap. First to get sloppy is Losef Trasov, son of Russian's crime boss Viggo Trasov. He is at a gas station, sees John's Beak filling up his '69 Mustang, asks about it, offers to buy it, not for sale, but he doesn't leave all well enough alone. He insults him in Russian, but John knows Russians and answers in kind before driving off. But Losef still doesn't leave well enough alone. He and his two Dofus friends break into John's home in the middle of the night, kill his puppy, steal his car, that they leave him alive. Quick questions. How do they find out where he lives without finding out who he is? Because who is he is the main thing. These guys thought they attacked Clark Kent, and I assumed they would realize by and by. No, they attacked Superman, but it's not by and by. Everyone tells them he fucked dad for Superman, then every One waits for Superman to crash through the wall. I miss the buy and buy of it. To be honest, I like the realization. Vic isn't just Superman but a craving Superman. He was once Asian's for Vigo but asked out to marry the love of his life, Helen, whom we mostly see in iPhone videos and dreamy flashbacks. So he dies of a disease. He is distraught. Then he got in the puppy in the mud, a final gift from his now dead wife, so he will have something to love again. That's what Joseph and his friends kill. The first to let them know who they fucked with is Aurelio, who runs an underworld auto shop. They want new VI numbers for the 69 Mustang, but he recognized it, asked where they got it. Then Dex Joseph and orders him out of his shop. Aurelio lets Vigo know, the Vigo lets his son know. Does Vigo have more honor than Joseph, or is he just smarter? Vigo knows his son is in the wrong, but it's still his son. So the 12 Ascensions know then the 12 million bounty which given the task seems skimpy. Why not $100 million since you stand to lose everything? Eventually Vigo hires Marcus, a sniper whom we first saw in the most child cliche of action movie scenes and the outskirts of a funeral holding an umbrella in the rain. Marcus takes the money, follows Vic around, but he is more guardian angel than Ascensions. He uses rifle shoot to let John or take down enemies. He's got a code too. One who doesn't have a code, another assassin, Mistress Perkins. She attacks John in his room at the Continental, but he gets the upper hand and leaves her with a colleague Harry. Then he gets the upper hand of Harry. I like how we assume she will be essentially training John for the rest of the movie, as in names James Bond, but they don't even have a final confrontation. Winston takes care of her. She doesn't follow rules. All of this makes me think a little of Don Corleone. Women and children can be careless, but not men. This movie is playing into that. It wish fulfillment for older men really. The young are idiots who play video games and trash talk, while women don't have a code or don't follow it. They are careless. Real men are older, talk little, and drink bourbon. They do their job and go to back and clean up the mess. Apparently, a lot of thought went into the flight choreography. I don't pause without Amazon Prime informing me via IMB that this is fight. Kenyos uses his martial arts styles while his opponent uses that one, but it at Hong Kong. There is a little beauty in it. There is, however, a purity and simplicity like in IP Man, which reduce the kung fu flick to its essence. John Wick does the same with revenge fantasies. These not much that's extraneous. Did I enjoy it? Not really. It's not my thing. Guns aren't my thing. Or on the Russian mob. Look at the posters above. Can you isn't in focus? The gun is. The pretty much tells you everything you need to know. The John Wick series is not even a decade old and it is now officially a billion-dollar franchise. Based on numbers from Box Office Mob, the franchise has grossed over 1 billion worldwide thanks in no small part to John Wick Chapter 4, which became the highest grossing film in the series at last month, as well as the sixth highest grossing film of 2023, while raking in over 425 million at the global box office. The latest film's large opening pushed the series past the $1 billion threshold with $1 million. To crunch the numbers, the original John Wick brought it over 86 million in 2014. John Wick Chapter 2 broke the record with 171.5 million, and John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum went even after dragged in 32.77 million at the global box office. John Wick Chapter 4 came out at March 23 in all global markets except for Japan, where it is still expected to replace this all and push its lifetime growth a little over where it stands now. This milestone is the state testament to the incredible work of Judd Stahelski and Keanu Reeves alongside Basil Lonick and Eric Lee, who have made it their mission to outdo themselves with each successive film in this franchise. Lionsgate cheered Joe Direct deadline into a statement: "We could not be more grateful to global moviegoers for bringing us to this incredible achievement." In John Wick Chapter 4, Keanu Reeves' hitman sets out to exact revenge on the High Table and those who let him for dead in order to free himself for all obligations to the organizations. But Reeves was said to have agreed on ending the series with John Wick Chapter 4. John Wick, an ex-hitman, is forced to come out of retirement when his dog is murdered and his vintage car stolen. The man John Wick is trying to find turns out to be the son of a very powerful Russian mob boss, Vigo. It doesn't take long before John's path to exact revenge turns deadly as Vigo uses all his might to take down. John Wick is reeling from the recent passing of his wife Helen due to a terminal illness. The only thing keeping him from plunging into depression is a Baker puppy arranged as a gift for him by his late wife before she passed away. At a gas station, he encounters a bunch of guys. One of them, named Losov, shows an aggressive interest in buying John's vintage 1969 Ford Mustang. After John rebuffs the offer, the group gives an evident sign that the deal is not over. Losov, along with his friends, breaks into John's house while he sleeps. The gang beats John, kills his puppy, and after a bit of smashing and breaking, they leave stealing John's Mustang. They take the car to a chop shop run by a man named Orillo, who boasts strong underground connections. Furious, Orillo slaps Losov after noticing the car he stole belongs to John Wick. When Losov's father, mob boss Vigo, calls to inquire about the incident, Aurelio informs him that the person that Losov has picked a fight with is John Wick. Vigo hangs up without uttering a word. What's Vigo's reactions? Vigo hits and breaks Losov before explaining to him that John Wick is no ordinary man with a dog. The mob boss reveals John used to work for him when John wanted to retire after meeting woman. Vigo tasks him with dog the impossible. To everyone's disbelief, John pulled off the task and left criminal base. Vigo informs his son that he is no match for John's capabilities and the only thing he can do is run from John. Vigo then phones John in an attempt to resolve the matter. However, John has nothing but vengeance in his mind. John Wick retrieves his weaponry and gets Real to find Losov. He first stops in Aurelio's shop where he obtains details about Losov. He gets a car and leaves. Vigo sends several hitmen to kill John, but John kills them all, causing no surprise for Vigo. Vigo places $2 million bounty on John's head, which he personally offers to John's mentor Marcus. Marcus accepts the offer. John checks in at New York Continental Hotel, which is exclusively reserved for people from the underworld. The hotel has strict policies, one of which is no association with in its boundaries. In order to finish off John in the hotel itself, Vigo doubles the bounty for anybody with guts enough to break the Continental's code and kill John. John Wick meets the manager of Continental Hotel, Winston, who informs him that Losov is at his nightclub, Red Circle, under high security. Wasting little time, Jones reaches the club where he kills a bunch of Losov henchmen. Despite Jones' immaculate efforts, Losov manages to sleep out. He gets back to the hotel for treatment of his wounds. But third Asians, Mr. Perkins, arrives to kill Jones. However, Marcus alters Joan for her presence, and as a result, Joan subdues her before she can do any harm. He then crosses her to Real Vigo's location. John travels to Russia, where he destroys Vigo's stolen gold, a cache of cash, papers, and more. Later, he manages to locate Vigo and his men. His attempt to kill Vigo is foiled, and subsequently he is captured. Later, with Marcus' help, John frees himself, kills Vigo's man, and sets off after Vigo. He finds and stops Vigo at gunpoint and forces him to reveal Losov's location in exchange for his life. Before long, John locates Losov and kills him along with his bodyguards. Vigo comes to learn of Marcus' betrayal. Consequently, he tortures and kills him, and then he calls John to report Marcus' pitiable fate. Vigo plans to have Perkins kill John. However, the plan fails with Perkins is killed by Winston for breaking the law of the Continental. Winston informs John that Vigo is planning to leave in a helicopter. Subsequently, John reaches New York Harbor, where he kills Vigo's man and leaves the severely injured mom post to die. John breaks into an animal clinic to treat his wounds. He frees a pit bull, but that was to be euthanized and exhausted yet content. John leaves for home on foot with his new dog by side. New has just lost his wife to cancer and has grown up weird. He is also called John Wick in his movie. However, he holds the same expression from the Matrix, also seems to have forgotten all his just to knowledge. His wife leaves him a puppy, and oh, little puppy, she plans his puppy as her replacement in death. So, as far as John Wick is concerned, this is his dead wife. Vic takes the puppy out for a drive, and at a fuel station, we meet our first three people of interest, the villains. Russians mob with Losov as their leader. Losov wants Vic's car. Vic says no, not this speech in Russian. Typically, if you are a Russian in America and an American replies to you in Russian, you would check out who the possible American could be. After all, Russian is not the national language of America. Instead, what do the three Russians do? They land up at Vic's place at night, beat him up, steal his car, and wait for it, kill his puppy. Yep, that's what they do. They take the car and try to get it modified by the car modifier. Aurelio. Aurelio beats up Losov for being an Losov and doing Losov kill things to Vic. Vic, Vic meets Aurelio to find out who Losov was. Turns out that Losov is the idiot son of Russian mob head, Vigo. Vigo gets to find out from Aurelio about what his smart ass son has done to Vic. Bogeyman. What we get to know now is that Vic is a big badass called the Bogeyman. He is basically fucked up the opposition all by himself to get Vigo where he is today. However, Vic retired from his bad SE to take care of his dying wife. He is not being in the scenes for 5 years. Last review the situation, Losov just messed up the puppy of the retired Bogeyman. The puppy which was the replacement of his wife who died of cancer for plot established Losov will die a gruesome death at the hands of Vic, and so will anyone who comes in Vic's way. Marcus. Vigo calls Vic and tries to change his mind, doesn't work. Vigo sends Asians to Vic's house to take him out. Vic fucks them all up, calls the cleaning service to take out the bodies. Vigo puts 2 million bounty on Vic and gives a job at Marcus. John, friends and mentors, so you know where Losov is getting his brains from. The hotel. Vic moves out to the school hotel, which is a suite set up for Asians to stay and perform assassinations outside the hotel. Vigo now doubles the bounty in depression. Vic's chilling out at the exclusive club at the Continental trying to get more info on the location of Losov. We also see this chick who played Wonder Woman at the club winking and saying hi to Vic. Bartender chick is cozying up with Vic. Basically, everyone likes loves Vic. The owner of the Continental Starry gives Vic the location of Losov. He is at his papa's club making out with multiple ladies in a pool. Vic lands up there and takes out 2 dozen men, but Losov escapes. From here on, Vic gets his ass handed to him multiple times. by the guard at the club, the chick who played Wonder Woman at Continental Guards at the church, and Vigo at a later time. As the law of the villains go, they never kill Vic when they have the chance. Marcus too babysits Vic with his awesome spinner lifer. Thanks to the good fortune, good luck, great babysitting, and after this, Marcus is killed by Vigo. Click, who played Wonder Woman, is killed by the owner of the Continental. More henchmen are killed by Vic. Then the customary first fight happens between Vic and Vigo. Vigo cheats, of course, by pulling out a knife. The knife finds its way to Vic's abdomen and then to Vigo's neck. Vigo dies. Okay, knife, fine. There was no plot, I get it, but for the awesome way in which John Wick was introduced, he needs haven't been saved by every character in the movie who has not the villain. The gunfire scenes were nicely done, but people, this is the guy who played Neo. They could have thrown in some better hand-to-hand combat for Pete's sake. The movie started at such a high note and died to an average action flick at the end. The movie should have ideally taken the course that Equalizer did.